If you're a beginner or intermediate chess player like myself, then don't resign even if you're losing. What it's costing you is not just the elo points when you resign, but also the knowledge that you need to become a better chess player, which is ultimately the goal. Let's get started. I'm going to show you two games of my own that I lost to illustrate the concepts that I learned through playing through an entire game and not just giving up and resigning. So here we go. Everything goes for me fine in this game until about move 38. So I'm going to move down here. This is the position that I was in. One thing that I really hate about watching GM level analysis of games is that they kind of expect you to understand inherently what's going on. So allow me just a second to explain my position here, what my goals were, and why I couldn't make some of the moves I wanted to. So first of all, as you can see, this position is pretty locked up. You notice a bunch of pawns in the middle. And so what I'm fighting for is a way to break through this position. Okay. I'm looking mainly at this spot right here and then this entire file because this to me is the whole ball game is this file and right here. So I'm kind of stuck because I don't want to move my rook because if somehow my opponent takes and I'm not there to take it back, then they can just put a rook over there and then escort that puppy all the way down. So ultimately, what I have to do is I'm kind of stuck, okay? And I can't really move my knight because of that, and I can't really take because of that. And so we got the bishop right here. So there's a lot going on, and this was a 10-minute rapid game. So I don't have a lot of good moves here. But then again, neither does my opponent, right? So I thought that I would just try to incrementally get better and push things forward. But right here, check, I move, my opponent takes. Now, this is the first mistake. And I know that now by looking at my game. I just told you how important this rook was on this file because it's protecting this pawn and this whole exchange. This is probably the entirety of the game. But for some reason, I decided to take with this rook. Yikes. And so immediately you can see how this is a bad deal for me. Now, what I probably should have done was go here and then pull over and then try to double up. But that's not what I did. What I did instead was I kept looking at this juicy open file. I was thinking, is there a way for me to get that bishop? So I became fixated on an idea instead of working with what I had. So open file, I take open files. That's just something I do. It's one of the principles that I always do. But I should have, in looking at it now, gone over here. Instead, it's all even locked up more now. So actually not too bad that I'm on this file. There's not much I can do, but I at least have access to these. The problem is that I don't have a rook to balance out because when I say like let your opponent take you on open files, usually there's another rook there to swoop in, take that open file, but I'm stuck. This rook is overextended. It can't do anything. So I take and then just hope. I am playing on hope. I do not have a plan because I can't take this pawn. And my opponent knows they can just kind of goof around right here because there's nothing I can do to this pawn. It is in great shape. Okay. And I can't move a pawn because takes, and then I can't take. I'm just kind of stuck here. So ultimately, there's just a little bit of moving around. My opponent is moving his or her piece, like moving the king into the action. I'm stuck. This is bad. So I was hoping that I'd be able to get my rook in. My goal became, since I had my king right here, my goal was to try to find a way onto this file in a way that I could take something and start to gobble up the pawns, but that's not what ended up happening. This is the major mistake. The last mistake wasn't too bad, but this basically lost the game for me. Take a minute to see if you can see why. I should have gone all the way over here because that would be protecting this file and then making sure this can't just promote. But in my mind, what I thought was I'll take this and scoot over, which ignores the entire idea of now, whoops, this rook is now protecting this pawn all the way down. And look, I do not have any way to get down to block this anymore. In my short-sighted look at attacking, I gave up the game. There is a chance I could have won or tied, got a draw out of this game, but I lost. Now, I probably could have resigned here because, man, this is almost foolproof. I mean, my opponent is protecting all these squares, but because I don't like to resign, I need to learn this stuff, right? So I played through. I tried to see if there was anything I could do to come back, because I thought, well, we've got here, and then I'm protecting here. So I'm looking at least not the worst of my positions. Okay. And I was hoping for a mistake. Again, playing with hope is never a good idea. You should have a plan. I didn't have a plan. My plan was to like put my opponent in meaningless checks, which I say you should never do, and then hope that they made a mistake. And that just didn't happen. Because here, this is one square away from promotion. And even if not, if I somehow miraculously manage to trade something, they're still up pawns and they're all connected here. And I don't have a way of getting over here. The king is just a square away from gobbling these all up. So I did end up resigning because I just couldn't think of anything else to do. But I played as far as I could because I wanted to think through my issues. Was there a way to come back from having my rook on the wrong file? So the skill that I learned here, or the thing that I thought about here, the skill that I need to learn is making sure that I am on the file where there is a pass pawn or potential for a pass pawn. I should be on this side protecting my side of the board, not on their side attacking unnecessarily. For my second game, this is a game I, in all likelihood, should have won. And one of the things I'm learning about myself at chess is that in games, I can sometimes give away a good position because I don't do enough and I'm not aggressive enough, and I allow my opponent to be more aggressive and take advantage of the position on the board. So here we're in the Vienna game, and I'm pretty comfortable with this kind of position. It's a couple of errors that start pretty terribly, and one concept that I really struggle with is pawn pushes. Now here, I'm used to this. I should have moved my queen here. I usually do. I don't know why I didn't this time, but I did not expect this pawn push because I can't take back because it would be check. And furthermore, I didn't pay attention to this square right here. This knight is an absolute pin. Like, I can't move this knight. So I should have blocked or something, right? But I'm in bad shape because I counterattacked. I thought I was protecting the center and developing, but what I failed to acknowledge was push pawn. And now, so this is like a fork almost. So I can't move. I'm going to lose that knight. I end up counterplaying, taking something just in case, and trying to get my position stabilized. It's not, though, because beyond thinking about pawn pushes and how dangerous pawns can be if you don't pay attention to them, I also am learning about pawn islands. So here we have a good strong pawn position, but here we have an isolated pawn that is unprotected, and here we have an isolated pawn. It is protected by this rook, but I can't leave that there forever because I'm going to have to connect my rooks and attack and all that. So this is bad. Like, my opponent has a better pawn structure. Even not knowing anything about pawns, I know that this is better because they have two sets of pawns. They're clearly linked. They're together. This is good. Mine are not. Like, this is bad. Okay. Now, somehow I managed to stabilize the position and get to at least an even position out here. So I'm going to move, actually, to move 45. Okay, so I'm still in pretty good shape in this position because I've got a rook that is controlling the 7th rank. And that's one of those fundamental chess tips that if you're above 1,000, you probably know. Like, get your rook to the 7th rank. That way I can move around and I am blocking this pawn. I have 2 pawns against this 1 pawn. So my goal is to take one of these up and then try to hold off these 2 pawns with my 1 pawn and not move it too early so that I lose something and have to panic. Because my goal was to get over here, maybe, and then trade on this square, trade, and then take this. And then at that point, if I do that well, then I have 2 pawns against 1 pawn and a knight, which I'm hoping I can take somehow, right? So what ends up happening, though, is that I forget about this. So I'm thinking, haha, check. But instead what happens is I get put in check. I have to block. And this is no bueno. I mean, if my opponent wanted to, they didn't. But here we have a mistake. That's just the blunder. I think they thought I would have to move, but I can just take. So I think, haha, now I am in a winning position. Even though there's a take right here and I have to move. Okay. I probably should have blocked here somehow, but I'm feeling okay. My opponent does a great job of protecting. So this is kind of a stalemate in my thinking, right? Not a stalemate per se, but we are protecting one another. Okay. And I know one thing I'm thinking about is this check forces me to take. So I don't want that. Because if the pawn gets right here, then it's 1, 2, 3 moves. I can get there. Okay. I can get there to stop it, but then this pawn is gliding because take, and I just don't see that as a good end game for myself. I don't know a lot about pawn end games, but I do know that 1 pawn or 1 king against 2 pawns is not a good winning position. So I drop this rook back because I do not want a forced take. And I'm still under the illusion that I can push this pawn, which I should be doing probably, getting it closer. But the fact is, this king is just always right here and is simultaneously protecting this. So it's a pretty complicated position, especially for someone who's like a low-level intermediate player like myself. So what I probably should be doing is getting my king more into it. What I wanted to do was go up here and kind of trade off and trade and maybe get a draw or find a way to promote. And I end up allowing my opponent to continue to push. Like a rook check, one thing that I do know is that a rook check is good during a pawn push because you can check, move down, check, move down, check, move down. Now I was thinking like maybe here and then here, but that's not what ended up happening. I forgot about the simple principle that I remembered before. I wanted to use my rook as a mask so I could go up here and attack. But in all of that time, I forgot, haha, this. I've got to take. I have no choice. And at this point, even though I'm someone who knows, okay, fine, play until you resign, I know that this is like a complete loser because I can't get to the square in time. That's 4 moves and that's 2 moves, right? And so I resign because the game is lost at that point. If you know it is absolutely lost, it's okay to resign. But as long as there's a fighting chance, why not fight? Because the hardest part of chess for me is end games. So in order to get better at end games, I need to play more end games. even if I blunder material in the opening or the middle game, I still need to play all the way through, and so do you, because ultimately elo matters less than learning the chess concepts you need to be a better chess player. Because if you lose and are getting better at chess, that is ultimately what matters and not the number that is beside your username. Thanks for watching.